Okay, Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. In this video, I'm going to discuss one of the trends of religious pluralism. And bear in mind that this first trend is not a full-fledged religious pluralism, but I think the fact that secular humanism is a preamble to religious pluralism makes it mandatory for us to discuss religious secular humanism, without which it is hard for secular humanism to be propagated as a philosophy today, because it needs the foundation of secular humanism to take off. So let us take a look at what secular humanism has to offer with regard to the as foundation to the idea of religious pluralism. So basically, when we speak about secular humanism, bear in mind that this is a jargon. As a matter of fact, it's two big jargons, and we have a very trying time to explain these two jargons within 20 to 30 minutes. But anyway, I'll try my very best to simplify these two jargons and to try to jive the two jargons with religious pluralism, see how the movement from these very big ideologies or philosophy to a more specific philosophy that deals with diversity of religions. Yeah? So basically, secular humanism is composed of these two terms. This is very clear, very evident. From the word secular thing, the word secular is not foreign to you, and have a lot of debates on the word secular. Some of the Muslims are, appreciative of the word secular. Some do not. All right. So, what is secular? Um, the the core meaning of secular is actually telling about this world, the present world. If you can still recall the previous lecture when I have drawn, the two lines, the sacred and the profane, and how the two lines connect or disconnect with each other, I hope you can relate to the second line, which belongs to the secular. Yeah? So the world as a realm, either, well, in the context of secular, it is independent from the sacred. I hope you can recall this. Yeah? So independent from the sacred, in the sense that it establishes itself on its own. Yeah? And it has its own affair to take care of. It is bound to time and space, to history. Yeah? This present world, this secular world, is the profane world that is mere material. It is there as it is. Yeah? If you want to understand it from the opposite perspective, then whatever that is secular is not sacred. So you talk about the existence of this world as objective, as what you call that, can be perceived by your reasoning, can be perceived by your senses, yeah, and that's all. Whatever that is beyond your reasoning, your logical reasoning, beyond your experience, beyond your senses, or say, for example, you're talking about metaphysics, metaphysical world, that is not secular. That is the sacred, and it does not fall under this secular world. So the word secular only concern at the present, this world, here, yeah, and nothing other than that. Now, what about humanism? Humanism is another jargon, a very bombastic idea about how man perceives his presence, his nature, his existence in this world. Now, humanism is a philosophy that propagates man as the ultimate, man as the objective, man at the central of the universe. Man is a measure of everything. Man is a method, man is objective. So there is no immaterial about man. Everything is about material. Yeah. Now, secular humanism, when combined together, talks about the the two dimension that explains existence. Yeah, that existence is only talking about here. It's only about talking another component that is so central here, which is man. So secular humanism is a philosophy for understanding here the world, the physical world, and the important constituent of this world, which is man. And the rest are only sub or secondary to man because man is the preference, man is at the central. So it is a philosophy for understanding the world and man. Yeah? So it's only about man and the nature. That's it. In comparison to the Tawhidic uh, concepts or worldview, when you talk about man and the nature, the universe, you have also to talk about God. So you have like God, man, and nature. But secular humanism only talk about nature and man and nature. That's it. Yeah. And this secular humanism is subtle way of desacralizing the world, the universe, from any elements of sacred. Yeah? That the world is mere material, that the world is merely hard stuff. Yeah? So if you're talking about unseen things, say for example, you talk about sin, you talk about reward and punishment. And that does not make sense if you are unable to prove what are the consequences of this reward and punishment. Say, for example, religion talk about heaven and hell. So how do you justify with your rational logical understanding of heaven? How do you justify? How do you prove? I mean, what you call tangible proof that there exists heaven and hell. I mean, scientifically. Yeah. So secular humanism attempts to remove all these elements of sacred from the words of man, from the mind of man, from the perceptions of man. I mean, it can be there, but it remains in human perceptions per se, and certain men who subscribe to such a perception. So it's not everybody's perception. So that's about secular humanism. It's all about the world, it's all about man. Yeah. But then there is a catch with secular humanism. What are the catches? Yeah. So we know that man differs in their understanding, their perceptions, in the way they perceive things. Yeah? So things become so relative, things become so subjective, and it's very impossible to find a solid agreement on certain issues, certain ideas, certain item. So you have certain people accept an idea and another people argue it, yeah, or the minority of the people support for what they believe as true, and the majority of the people support for that they believe as uh, valuable to the society. Yeah, and the most important impact of this subjectivism of relativism is that when it comes to human values, when it comes to values, it puts a lot of dilemma, right? Because man grasp for values is only determined by his opinion, by his perceptions, by his idea. And we know that in general, human has very limited access to know. And sometimes they can be very biased to a certain context, to a certain experience, to a certain uh, issue. Yeah. Anyway, since secular humanism has been accepted as a worldview, this cannot be stopped. So you find that at one point, men start to be very skeptical about certain values. That's why today, if you can see how people argued about whether, LGBT practices should be allowed or not, because at one point of time, people, was against it, is very abnormal and it's not accepted as a norm. Um, People take that, man is attracted to the opposite gender. But after some time, when people started to, promote and to provoke, yeah, and started to advocate the love for the same gender and from, show, display, exhibit, and try to address to the emotion of the people, how suffering it is living together or marrying to the same gender when the society excluded them. So people started to gradually change their perceptions towards LGBT practices. Why? Because, some social scientists started, or even psychologists started to diagnose it as a form of not abnormality, but as a form of um, psychological experience that deserve to be recognized, deserve sympathy, and deserve support. So from this, people started to uh, bring in more confusion or more questions about the previous norms. The norms change according to the likings of the people, according to the context. Yeah? So I think about maybe during when I was in the university, that was in 1995, at the end of the 20th century. I mean, LGBT was not accepted as a norm. In the US, many states are still against, many countries in the Europe were still against LGBT practices, same-sex marriage, so on and so forth. But today, you see how in America, almost all states have accepted LGBT, same-sex marriage. Even the churches have accepted and conduct same-sex marriage at the churches. In Europe, almost all countries in Europe accepted LGBT and same-sex marriage. So this is secular. What secular humanism has impacted the way human norms. Yeah? Now, what about religious values? Okay, because I mentioned just now that secular humanism has no regard for sacred values. So, say for example, you talk about fear of God, you talk about fear of hell, you talk about love for the reward, love for the heaven. These are the values not recognized by secular humanism, because these are simply sacred values and they are beyond human comprehension. There are no logical explanation and there are no concrete evidence about all this. I mean, if you can carry on believing in it on the basis of you're free to believe what you want to believe, but you cannot impose this value. This value has to be very subjective and very personal in that context. So this is very interesting and very central to the as a foundation to religious pluralism, because at this juncture, the role of human in describing religion, the role of religion in human life. So you see, at this level, religion or God has no regard, because it is regarded as outer this world and it does not concern the present. Yeah. Now, when we discuss about religious pluralism, we need also to um, get some uh, inputs from the real experience, the concrete experience of what is happening in certain country um, due to the due to the massive acceptance of secular humanism. And in this regard, one scholar, Anis Malik Taha, who happened to be one of our academics at the International Islamic University, regarded that for one to see how religious pluralism prospers today, it's good to look at the experience of the United States. Yeah. Even if you read the current discourse, you will find that Diana L. Eck, for example, a prominent scholar of Harvard University, she has started a Harvard Pluralism Project in 2000, and she was given good funding from the government to explore, to propagate religious pluralism as a state policy, as a government policy, and uh, and that's how pluralism survives until today in the United States, because it has become one of the important policies in America. Now, what about this uh, pluralism project in America? Now, this pluralism projects promotes values perceived as purely human values. So we go back to this secular humanism just now, that regard values as solely come from human, has no sacred intervention or origin whatsoever. So what are those central values? Those values are like respect, tolerance, coexistence, freedom of religion, and human rights. Yeah, and these values are values promoted by, especially by the deist philosophers. Who are the deists? Yeah, deists were the philosopher, rationalist philosopher who accepts religion on the basis of logic alone, on the basis of reasoning alone. Yeah? So religion can be accepted to exist as much as they are logical. Yeah. So that is the extent to which religion is tolerated. Yeah, but not more than that. I mean, it can exist on its own, but it can never be interfering the human engagement, human affairs in this world. It can coexist. If you can still remember the graph that I've shown you earlier, parallel. It can exist in parallel, but it can never be connected to the profane, to the secular world. So values, even though some religion promotes these values, the values that I mentioned just now, respect, tolerance, coexistence, but that should not be adopted, because that has to be, relevant to one personal engagement, subjective engagement. What the United States is trying to advocate here, that these values should be a shared values among humankind, and they should have a unified idea about these values. Now, they are, of course, inspired by certain thinkers, thinkers from the United States and also from other parts of the world, who have also influenced the thinkers, the philosophers, the politicians in the United States. So among these thinkers were like Benjamin Franklin in The Public Religion, advocate certain values to be the values practical enough to politics. This is called political pragmatism. So politics appreciates this value because it makes certain political position or ideas uh, practical in that particular context. So in the context of the American society, as you know that the American society, they are actually coming from different parts of the world. Yeah, come from North America, South America, Central America, and then from the Persian countries, from the Indian continent, Indo-Pakistan continent, and from the Asian, Southeast Asian, Japan, different from Africa, yeah, from different parts of the world. So now this explains the societal canvas of the American people, because you talk about the diverse religions. I mean, just take Christianity for example. We know that Christianity is divided into two, yeah, Catholicism, Protestantism, and Orthodox. But you know that even under Protestantism, there are so many churches, sectarians. The same goes to the Catholics. I mean, the traditions are also different within these Christian traditions. And you are yet to mention about the Muslim come from the Middle Eastern country, Asian countries, African countries. And these people, they speak different languages together, different traditions together, even though they belong to the same religion. So when they come together and stay in the United States, you know that it's very difficult to bring the people together. I mean, if you talk about religion to bind them, you know that they are so divided. You talk about language, so divided. You talk about values, they are also so divided. A lot of cultural clashes. Yeah. So Benjamin Franklin is trying to zoom into particular values that can make do. It's pragmatic enough for the people of America to get together. So he advocates what? Loyalty to the state, tolerance towards each other because they are living in diversity. And then we have Jean Rousseau, a French philosopher, who talk about the social contract. Uh, and he promotes the idea of civil religion, the religion of the society. I mean, not the traditional meaning of religion, believe in God, believe in scripture, believe in the prophet, so on and so forth. But this religion is a religion about how a civil society should behave in a country. Yeah. And this idea of civil religion try to talk about values, collective moralities that can help everybody to secure their rights, to do their role in the society. So there is a civil religion that bind the people together, because you cannot have differences of religion to bind the people. You cannot have different languages to bind the people, or different cultures to bind the people. You need to have something that can unite the people. So, certain values have agreed upon by the people to bind the people together. And you have people or scholars like William James promote the idea of pragmatic philosophy. He wrote the book Varieties of Religious Experience, Study of Human Nature, whereby he look at religion as merely from human empirical perspective. So that's why you have different practices of religion, because religion is actually human experience per se. Whether you call it mystical experience, emancipation or spiritual experience or whatnot, but it's human experience. I mean, I should not say here that it's not revelation, because that's how it is pictured in the Western context. Yeah. And John Dewey introduced concept or the idea of a common faith. And this common faith is not calling people to believe in God because he has no religion to advocate. It calls people to worship, yeah, to admonish, yeah, certain values, humanistic values, respect, tolerance, freedom, human rights, so on and so forth, yeah, and also rationalism and democracy as the foundation and objective of the new religion. This religion of common faith of values. So human values become the religion of mankind. Yeah. And how do you actualize this? That's why Harvey Cox later on propagated the idea that if you want this to happen, you have to adopt the process of secularization. What is that process of secularization? You should be able to differentiate, to compartmentalize between your perceptions, ideas, and actions, yeah, on religion and God, religion and the world. I mean, there should be a clear demarcating line behind your human, your behavior, your worldly behavior, to that of your spiritual or religious behavior, without which you will not be able to appreciate the so-called worldly values or your human behavior. So first you need to demarcate, to differentiate. Secondly, you should not allow the religious value, God's value, to dominate any single uh, things that you are doing in this world, to the extent that your work, yeah, your lifestyle. Yeah, and that answers why in European countries, um, in the United States, yeah, at one point of time, I mean, wearing hijab, yeah, is imposing your values, your religious value, because, I mean, you exhibit it to people, to the public. You have certain influence in the way people perceive you. I mean, you are advocating your religious values. But then, except that in the US, the situation is differently because the sense of individualism is very high there. Yeah, so people are free to do whatever they think is good for them as long as they are not encroaching other people's rights. So that is very strong in the US in the context of in Europe, because Europe is still strong sense of ethnocentrism. Eh? They still have some appreciation for Christianity as the backdrop of the European civilization. Yeah. So, but anyway, in the context of US, it's a totally secularized context. Yeah, history is, it's called here defactualization of history. History is what is here at this point of time, at this juncture. There is a beginning and there is end for it. I mean, you born in this world, you die, that's it. There's nothing after that. Yeah. Because this idea of secular humanism do not want man to become fatalistic. Yeah? Because you think about heaven, about hell, then your activity becomes so much dictated by this idea of heaven and hell. Yeah, so that, for example, certain religions started to be driven by this idea of heaven and hell. And, for example, in Christianity, if you're not Christian, then you're condemned. So that makes the unity very impossible in the context of America, because they are living with different types of religion. So if you're thinking that other peoples are condemned, are pagan, they are going to hell, that will not help them to come together. The only way to go to go away from this, or to go out from this dilemma, is to just discard religion from the people's mind and language, and let it be at a very secluded or isolated domain, that is spiritual domain. So secularization is, removing away the discourse of metaphysics of religion uh, from the human endeavor. And I'm going back to the values promoted by all these thinkers just now in solving the problems of the American society, which is the value of tolerance, of respectfulness, yeah, of living together in coexistence. Yeah. So that's about it with regard to secular humanism as a preamble of religious pluralism. Again, it is not a full-fledged religious pluralism, but it lays the foundation for pluralism to take off when John came later in the 20th century. Thank you very much, and Assalamu alaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.